Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're talking about something that really caught our eye in the financial news lately.
Yeah, it's a big one. Could be huge even.
It's definitely got us thinking, and we're willing to bet it's something that has you, as a listener, wondering what's going on too. Basically, we're talking about the U.S. government and its gold reserves.
Big topic, right?
Right. And specifically, this idea that's been floating around about them potentially, changing the way they value that gold.
Exactly, repricing it. And we've been really digging into this article from March 9th of this year, 2025. It really gets into the nitty-gritty of what this could mean, all the potential fallout, the market chaos, the expert opinions, all that. So we're going to break it down for you, hopefully make some sense of it. No jargon, we promise.
The U.S. and gold. Long history there.
Yeah, everyone knows the U.S. holds a ton of
Oh,
gold,
yeah.
right? Like more than anyone else. Largest reserves globally. That's right. Largest gold reserves in the world. But it's not really about how much they have. It's how they're valuing it on their books, Because right now it's all based on this price that was set ages ago.
Yeah, super outdated. So this whole repricing thing, it's about bringing that valuation up to speed to today's market price.
Exactly. And that's where things get, well, kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, changing that number has a ripple effect.
A big one, a huge ripple effect, potentially.
Yeah.
It could impact the whole U.S. financial picture. And then, that spills over into the global system, too.
For sure.
So I guess we should start with where this whole idea came from, right? I mean, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. The article points back to something earlier this year.
Yeah, that's right. Back in February, early February, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, he made this comment about unlocking government assets.
Unlocking.
Right, to free up some cash, basically.
Yeah.
To get some more liquidity in the system. Right. Now, he didn't come right out and say, we're talking about gold, but people put two and two together. Yeah. I mean, you start talking about monetizing assets on the U.S. balance sheet, people start thinking, what assets? What are we talking about here?
Especially when you consider, the sheer size of those gold reserves. So
Right.
it's like this big question mark hanging in the air.
Big question mark.
So, okay, that's the setup. Now let's get into the details. What does repricing actually mean? Like, if they do this, what are they actually doing?
Okay, so repricing. It basically means they're adjusting the value of their gold on paper to match the current market price.
Okay, so they're saying this is what it's worth today, not what it was worth way back when.
Exactly. And the article gives us some numbers to play with.
Oh, yeah, let's hear the numbers.
Right now, those gold reserves, they're valued at around, get this, $11 billion.
$11 billion.
$11 billion. But if they were to reprice it today, at today's market value, that number jumps to, wait for it, an estimated $760 billion.
Whoa, that's a jump.
That's a big jump. So, think about it like, imagine your house suddenly being worth way, way more than what you bought it for.
That's a good analogy.
But on a national scale.
Exactly.
National scale.
Okay, so that's not just like a little accounting tweak.
No, this is significant.
So what happens to the U.S. balance sheet if they do this? I mean, that's a huge influx of assets, at least on paper.
Right. It's like injecting a ton of new resources into the system, almost like another round of, what do they call it, QE?
Quantitative easing.
Yeah, quantitative easing,
Mm-hmm.
where the central bank buys assets to increase the money supply.
Right, right. So it's like they're printing money, but with gold instead of, actual printing.
Yeah, kind of. And that's where some economists get nervous.
They get nervous. Why?
Well, the article quotes this guy, Lou Crandall. He's the chief economist over at Wrights and ICP. And he's basically saying, hold on, this could have some serious consequences.
What kind of consequence?
Well, when you suddenly have this massive increase in the value of government assets, it can really mess with things like inflation expectations,
Yeah.
how the national debt is perceived.
Right. So it's like the U.S. looks a lot richer on paper, but is it actually richer?
Exactly.
And everyone's trying to figure out what that means.
Yeah, it's a big change for the markets to digest.
To digest.
Big change.
Okay. Okay, so that's the balance sheet side of things. Now, let's talk about the actual price of gold itself. What does this do to gold, even if the U.S. just reprices it and doesn't actually sell any of its reserves?
This is where things get really interesting. The article talks to Francisco Blanch. He's the head of commodities research at Bank of America Securities. And he's basically saying this would be a huge boost for gold prices.
Huge boost.
Like a tailwind,
Tailwind, okay.
pushing gold prices higher.
Right, pushing them up. Why does he think that?
Well, he says it would change the way people think about gold.
Yeah.
Like some people see it as this, old-fashioned thing, a relic of the past.
Mm.
A barbarous relic is what they call it. Barbarous relic, okay.
Yeah. But Blanche is saying this move would make people see it as a serious, valuable financial asset again, like relevant to today's economy.
Right. It's not just something your grandma keeps in a safe.
Exactly.
What?
And it's not just Bank of America saying this either.
Okay, so who else is on board with this idea?
The article also quotes this independent analyst, Brian Hicks, and he actually takes it a step further. He says, yeah, it could strengthen the U.S. balance sheet, but it could also trigger a global shift.
Global shift.
Yeah, a global shift in how people invest in gold and commodities in general. Like, it would basically confirm gold's role as a major player in the global monetary system.
Wow. So it's not just about the U.S., it's about the whole world potentially changing how they see gold.
Exactly. That's what the article is saying. Like, this one move by the U.S. could set off a chain reaction.
Fascinating. So, okay, the article also gets into the nuts and bolts of what they're actually thinking of doing. They're talking about doing an audit of all the gold reserves, right?
That's right, at Fort Knox.
At Fort Knox. Like a proper accounting of all that gold.
So, like, they're taking inventory before they do anything drastic.
Exactly.
Makes sense. But then the article points out something kind of weird.
Yeah.
It says, hold on, the U.S. doesn't keep all its gold at Fort Knox.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of it elsewhere, too, right? Including a bunch that the Federal Reserve holds.
Yeah, independently.
Independently.
Which makes you wonder, if they're serious about this whole repricing thing, why just audit Fort Knox?
Right.
It's like, are they getting the full picture? Or are they just dipping their toes in the water here?
That's a really good point. It's like, if you're going to revalue all your gold, shouldn't you know how much gold you actually have?
Exactly. So it kind of raises more questions than it answers.
It does. Okay, so let's take a step back here. Big picture time. If all of this actually happens, if the U.S. goes ahead and reprices its gold, what does the article say the impact could be?
Well, they're saying it could be huge. Huge. I mean, you're talking about changing the U.S. balance sheet in a big way.
Yeah.
And that could affect everything, the entire financial system.
Right.
And then globally, the price of gold could skyrocket. And that could change how everyone, everywhere, thinks about gold.
Wow. It's like a butterfly effect.
Yeah.
One little flap of the wings in the U.S., and the whole world feels it.
Yeah, and the experts they talked to in the article, they're definitely paying attention. This isn't something they're taking lightly.
So it's not just about changing some numbers in a book, is it?
No, it's way bigger than that.
This is about, like, a fundamental shift in how gold is viewed.
Right. Like, is it just a shiny metal? Or is it a cornerstone of the global financial system?
Exactly. And that brings us to something we want you to think about. Imagine a world where gold is more than just, jewelry or something you buy when you're scared about the economy. Imagine it's a central part of how everything works.
It makes you wonder, how would that change how you invest your money?
Right. And what would it mean for the whole global system? Would it make things more stable, less stable?
Big questions.
Big questions. And this deep dive, based on this article, it doesn't give us all the answers, but it definitely makes you think.
It does.
So thanks for joining us, and keep thinking about it. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, it will.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.